Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of, crossover episode of Slate Money with Death, Sex, and Money, the two Slate podcasts that have money in the title.
Bring in the death and sex to money.
I feel like I'm very happy about this because I should introduce myself. I am Felix Salmon of Slate Money, which is a kind of blank slate title where you can put anything in if it's vaguely money related. I am here with the one and only Anna Sale of Death, Sex, and Money, which I feel like is a much more descriptive title, really.
It's descriptive, but maybe you could think of it as a more vast blank slate because you can throw even more into that big bucket of death, sex, or money and/or money.
Yeah, and so I feel like where we oversect is obviously money, but the reason I was super excited to talk to you is because one of the things we don't talk about on Slate Money that often, is A, personal finance, and B, just emotions.
Feelings.
I'm a cold fish, Anna.
Oh, I'm gonna make you squirm, Felix. Get ready.
You're gonna make me squirm. And yeah, we don't really have feelings on Slate Money. We are rational robots. And now I'm entering this jacuzzi with you, full of emotions and floaty bits. And you're gonna hold my hand and make sure that I'm comfortable.
I am, and you're going to hold my hand because what I love about Slate Money is I feel like it's a way to listen to understanding how I am fitting into systems, how the floaty feelings that I spend a lot of time thinking about, you help me kind of hook it on scaffolding to help me understand where I am and how I'm situated to other people in the economy. So I appreciate the expertise you're bringing.
Thank you. And so what I thought we could talk about today is short people, or specifically children, not like adult short people, like they're adults. We can leave
not
them to
full-grown people,
not non-fully grown people. People get very emotional about this whole subject of children, but one of the many emotions that is associated with children, rather than childhood, is this terrifying fear of, oh my God, how expensive is this thing? And what am I letting myself in for? And if you read all of the literature about, belly aching about declining birth rates across most of the planet, inevitably, somewhere in the 2,500 word article about Korea or whatever is going to be a line about one of the reasons that people aren't having as many children is because either they can't afford to or they don't think they can afford to. I'm not entirely convinced this is true, but it certainly feels true. It has truthiness that children are this expensive luxury. Do you think they're an expensive luxury?
Expensive luxury. Well, I have a visual prompt to show you what my life is like with two elementary age children.
We are on YouTube, we can see the visual prompt. This is a visual podcast, people. If you are just listening without watching, you are missing out.
This is maybe a labored metaphor, but I was like, oh, what do I want to wear for my conversation with Slate Money? I got to class it up, and I thought, so right now this is a necklace that I'm wearing from my dear husband. It's a nice, beautiful little pearl. It's the first kind of nice piece of jewelry he ever bought me, which he bought me 7 years into our marriage. And then, so that kind of gives you a sense of we were married for a long time before it felt like we could do something that was special. And then there's this
Did he buy you an engagement ring?
He did not buy me an engagement ring. We were walking home from the park and decided, let's just get married. And so then we had to start saving our money for a wedding. So we didn't buy any jewels.
Did you buy wedding bands?
We did. But you know what we did? Here's my wedding band, this gold band. This gold band, we melted down gold that was from different family members, and we made each other.
Well, that is very romantic.
We made each other wedding rings from gold that was already around. Okay, my other necklace, you get to choose my fashion. This is a very blingy cost. I thought this is kind of British looking to me.
Okay, you have to be watching this on YouTube. I literally just gasped. That is That is like Elizabeth Taylor quality necklace going on right
I
here.
thought it looked kind of regal, like made me look kind of like, and so it's for the Brit, I brought something that
Yeah.
reminded me of what I would
It's
wear if I
it's
were a queen.
it's giving Cleopatra.
Okay, so but here is here's this nice. But I want you to know this is like a costume jewelry piece that I got in South Carolina, and it's made of like probably very like shiny but cheap metal and glass
Don't
beads.
let it touch your skin for too long, otherwise your skin will turn
Turn
green.
totally green. So this is I just want what when I thought about like how is my life shaped by the fact that I'm raising two kids, it means that for, I first became a mom at age 35. So at a time when maybe if you don't become a parent, you're beginning to, if you've had a string of, good breaks, maybe you're getting to the point in your career where you have some discretionary income, like that that just isn't present when you have babies in
Your
America
children
in this
ate
era.
your income.
They did, and then some. And so I think that to go back to your question about our children a luxury item, um, no, I don't think we should characterize them as that.
They're
But
a little bit too smelly to be a luxury
yes,
item.
yes. But they're like a yacht. They take a lot of upkeep, expensive upkeep. But
The two
I
best
do.
days in your life are the day you buy your child and the day you sell your child. Wait, hang on.
Um, but do I think that they are how was money related to my feeling like I was ready to become a mom? It wasn't so much, I mean, I did try to like spreadsheet out what a baby was going to cost. I was like, what is a diaper? How many diapers a week? Da, da, da. I tried to do that. That didn't really give me an accurate number when I was pregnant, but I did really want to feel like I was standing on slightly solid ground as I took on this
Do
responsibility. And
you
I think there are
do you
lots of
know
people.
anyone who has underestimated the cost of a kid?
Oh, I believe everyone probably underestimates,
Sorry,
particularly
sorry, I don't mean that. I mean who has overestimated. Do you know anyone who's like had a kid and thought, "Oh, this is much cheaper than I thought it would be"?
cheaper. I think that there are families and ways to arrange your community of care where you don't have the sticker shock that a family does if you are a family where both caregivers, parents are
Yeah.
working and you have to pay for childcare.
Outsource all of the childcare to grandparents. This is a
Yes.
great way of saving money.
Yes, and if you have the luck of healthy grandparents that have the energy to do it, that's a way to save money. In my case, what I found was from when I had my first child at 35, I had a second baby 2.5 years later, and it was also a time when my husband and I were buying our house. We were trying to figure out how to afford a couch. We were having to pay first for childcare. We did a nanny for the first baby. Then when the second one came along, there were a few years we were paying for preschool and infant care. I mean, it was insane. It was an
And
insane
when did
amount
you
of
buy the
money.
minivan?
Well, we let's see. We did get a different car during the COVID era where we were just like, screw it. We can't just have a sedan. We need to have room for the dogs because we needed to be fully mobile as a family. We felt like to escape wherever we were at any
You
time.
do have like the quintessential nuclear family of like mom and dad and two kids and the dog, and
And
you need
two
to
two
fit it
dogs. Yeah, two
and fit the
dogs.
dogs and the kids and the parents
Yes.
all into one vehicle.
And it was a huge I think I'm still recovering from the insane amount of financial anxiety that I just did not know how um I mean it was really scary. It was really really scary and overwhelming to have so many new costs coming at me at once. And
So like 2 years into kid one, are you like how are you feeling about kid two at that point? Do you feel like you've learned something and yet you're just going ahead with it anyway?
kid what I love how I'm picturing these little like specimens in a lab. Um, Kid Two. I mean, the choice to do Kid Two was just a leap of faith, and that came not from any kind of economic calculation, and instead from just a deep, deep feeling that I wanted. if I could, to have kids who were siblings. I wanted to have
As
more than one kid.
as someone who lives in Manhattan, I have long believed that the biggest flex you can do in Manhattan is to have 3 kids.
Oh, yeah. Or sometimes you run into those families with four. And
Yeah.
I have a hard time even talking to those moms at elementary school pickup because I just it's interesting. I have this mix of how on earth it's like they're an alien, and I have a very intense sense of envy. Like I wish that choice could have been available to us, and it was money that made it not so.
So, wow. Would you so in a way it's true, or at least truthy, that if money was no object, you would have like 4 kids by now.
Uh yes. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to have a big family. I love being a mom. I love parenting. I find my kids to add like immeasurable joy to my life, and I feel so glad that I'm a parent. I also
This is so refreshing after however many years of co-hosting a podcast with Emily Peck. It's just like, oh my god, you won't believe what they did this week.
well, yes, just tell Emily I have such charming children who never yeah, they're never annoying.
They never
But
fight.
yeah, I guess I just want to make sure it's clear. I live in the Bay Area. I live in a like one of the most expensive
Famously
places you
cheap
could
place to
live.
live.
Yes. So I definitely think that I this is all a consequence of choices that I've made, the kind of work that I went into, the kind of place we decided to settle in. Um, I think there's different realities in America and different sorts of communities, but that's the case for us. That two absolutely we actually said over and over again when we would like daydream about a third kid, well, we couldn't. One of us would have to quit our jobs, and that's because of the cost of childcare. Like we could not do a
I
third
feel
kid.
like this always puzzles me a little bit, just because. I mean, I know childcare is expensive, but if you are a middle class full time earner, like you are earning more even after taxes than you are spending on childcare.
Yeah, but at what cost, right? Like there's a certain point where you're like, how much money is going out the door for childcare, and then that adds a whole lot of logistical weight on everybody if you're trying to figure out how to arrange childcare. You're trying to figure out, and it also can make keeping a job that has a lot of obligations outside of the home difficult, right? Even when you have childcare, there's all sorts of things that you need flexibility around. And I'm not sure. I think there are plenty of earners. I mean, childcare where I live to send my kid to preschool cost over $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. So it's a lot of money. And then if you have two kids in it's at a certain point, it's like, is it less? Should one of the parents just stay home and save that money and provide care that you don't have to pay for?
So we've been talking a lot about kids as sort of financial drains, things that are expensive. And I can see from, because I'm a bit older than you and I have friends who have kids in their 20s, like it doesn't really end. Even when they leave home, like you are still paying money to the kids. It goes on a long time. Obviously, there are college expenses which are based into the college system, where if you are applying to college and your parents are middle class and have some money, you are 100% expected to extract money from those parents. Like the parents are paying for that somehow. So there's a lot of upfront outlays involved for the first 25 years or so of having a child, which is a long time. And if you have more than one, and if you have more than one child, then it would be like 30 years. And so I hesitate to even bring this up, but is there not also an offset? Like, as someone who doesn't have kids, I'm like, there are enormous financial and other benefits to having adult children when you are old. I mean, they are a little bit of a pension plan in that they might not be paying you money, but they will be doing other things that are financially very valuable to you.
I I I love that we have skipped from pre-K childcare all the way to when your child can be basically a pension plan.
Exactly. Like basically when your child is 55 and you're, 80, or in your case, 90, then at that point, your kid is like doing all manner of like things that are so valuable to you that it's almost impossible to replace with money. It's almost impossible to buy.
Yes, as somebody who is watching dear friends caregive for aging parents, um, it is just all the tasks that it requires that would be just really hard to figure out how to find someone to pay them. Whether it's coordinating medical appointments or just helping with tech questions, when new devices come into the household, all these sorts of things that adult children show up for, and really, I think, add an incredible sense of, a cushion as age, if you have the
and,
privilege of
and
aging.
preventing your parent from just getting scammed by um, pig butchering text messages.
Yes, I actually think that the scam, don't reply to that text and don't answer that phone call, and no, you don't need to sign up for that book club. And give them your credit card. That is a very important role of an adult child. Yes, I think that is something, a measure of maybe how I would put it is, for me, when I think about what I am earning money for since I became a parent, it's it's just kind of like I'm earning money to make sure we're stable. I'm earning money to, um, you know, there's a little bit of money to share with charitable gifts and things like that. But for the most part, it is I am earning money to set up my kids to launch into adulthood, and anything extra, I'm hoping it's going to allow them to navigate and maneuver through whatever the economy is like in America in the 2030s and 2040s.
I need to ask you this kind of loaded and rude
Oh,
question,
do it. Bring
but
it.
like, are you like moving towards that cliched point where you are living vicariously through your kids?
Oh, I think so. I wouldn't say it like that. It's not like I look at my kids and I'm like, I really hope you become the stadium selling out country star that I wish I could have been. That's like the alternate life path. What I think about, I don't think of it that way, but I think of it like it's almost like I feel really clear that I'm part of a flow of ancestors, right? Like that's
Right.
kind of how I think of it. Like it is my responsibility during these adulthood years of mine to try to steward, you know, kind of like, some of it's resources and some of it's like who are we as citizens, and what are our values, and how do we participate in our community, and how am I instilling
This
that in
is
our kids?
definitely, part of the rhetoric that we're seeing quite a lot of from the likes of JD Vance and Elon Musk, which is basically your job on this planet is to get the human race to continue and like have go out there and have babies and like support humanity that way because people like Felix Salmon who don't have any babies, they're like literally just mooching off the planet and giving nothing back.
Did you hear that when I said what I thought about parenthood?
No. No,
Okay.
yes and no. Like, so I feel like there is a narrow version of that, which is less to do with humanity and like, existential questions around whether humanity, but it's still there in terms of like, I come from an infinitely long line of people, my parents, grandparents, great, 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 great grandparents. There are millions of them, and I don't want to be the end of that line. And I want to continue that tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so it maybe is more directly genealogical rather than like a species based thing, but they are
Yeah.
related.
Yeah. Yeah. And for you, if I may ask, was your choice not to become a parent intentional?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, yeah, I partly it was selfish as someone who lives in Manhattan and likes spending money on food and art and, all of the other myriad travel, all of these things that one spends money on. Not only is there a direct cost to having children that then reduces your disposable income to spend money on anything else, but yeah, I think you put it right that all of your priorities wind up changing, and I was actually quite happy with my priorities.
Yeah. And I think when I look at my childless friends, I think it's kind of cool what you get to do that I have not gotten to do. When you do have more discretionary income as a grown up, you can find ways of creatively expressing and exploring
And
who
yeah,
you
it's
are.
not just money; it's time.
Yeah.
There's just like so. I
Choices.
remember we were doing a series of travel episodes on Slate Money, and both of my co-hosts on Slate Money are parents, and they mentioned that like basically neither of them had left the country in over a decade,
Hmm.
and I'm like, that's wild. I don't think I've ever gone more than a few months without,
Hmm.
leaving whatever country I'm living in. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
it's just part of my life.
Yeah.
It would feel very odd to me to be like, oh yeah, I've just been living in the United States for the past 10 years and haven't seen any other bit of the planet.
Well, not just seen, but had like relational encounters. So there's
Right?
like a good to that as well. Like
Yeah.
there's a you are doing something for our society by having relationships with people in other countries.
And plus, I'm an immigrant, so I have obviously more direct connection to other countries. But yeah,
Do you feel like you don't have a living and breathing pension plan in children as you look ahead
I
to older
totally
adulthood?
do. I
Uh-huh.
totally do. Like I could like I'm placing no faith in my nieces and nephews to be able to look after me when I'm old and doddery. And I'm not so delusional as to believe that I will be entirely compass mentis for my entire life. Like at some point, I am going to need people to look after me, and I have no idea who those people are going to be. Do you think maybe like Sam Altman's robot will be able to do that for me?
I don't think so. I
I
don't
think
think
not. I agree.
chatbots can do caregiving.
Right.
Maybe the chatbot can help you figure out how to get that weird thing off your phone that you don't know where it came from. But when it comes to care,
The
I think
most
that
important thing that adults do when they're looking after their parents is saying no. And the chatbots are very bad at saying no. The chatbot. This is the problem with all the people who are using chatbots as therapy is that you know, I'm on there in ChatGPT saying I'm not crazy thinking that all of these like voices are talking to me, right? And the chatbot is like, no, you're not crazy. This is perfectly sensible because their job is to sort of just reinforce that's how they communicate. And so yeah, if I'm like this book club is awesome, right? The chatbot is going to be like, yeah, give me your credit
yeah.
card number.
Well, and I'm not sure the most important thing a caregiver does is say no. I think the most important thing a caregiver does is like gives you an arm to hold on to when you're getting
Yeah,
out of the car,
that's also
and
that's also very useful.
yes. Can I ask you, when I think about AI and my kids, and it's something I'm thinking about a lot, a lot, a lot, just sort of the economy that we're careening towards and the job market. I don't know. It just feels so like it seems like I don't understand what world I'm raising them to enter into. Um, do you think this is a Slate Money expert question? Like, part of, I think, the reason why people like JD Vance talk about procreation as some kind of patriotic duty, it's because the workforce needs workers, and these are, this is how we're going to have economic growth. There tends to be like an economic theory along with the idea that that's the way to live
I mean, the
a
best way to raise GDP per capita is to just cut the number of capitas, right there, boom. But yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't scale very well.
cut the number of capitas. Is that true? Like, because
No, it's
when I
not
think
like.
about
I mean,
like
but it kind of
how
is.
will
Like if you
Social
look at
Security work? right?
Exactly. If you look at Japan, like that's a really good example of what happens when you have a shrinking population, and GDP per capita is doing quite well in Japan because population is shrinking. But you're absolutely right. The number of working adults who are supporting the elderly is just like that ratio is getting smaller and smaller, and eventually you wind up with the system where, you know, on some level, as a society, you face the same issue that I'm facing as a childless individual. Like, I don't have enough children to support me because my number of children to support me is zero. But then, as a society, like, you just don't have enough working age adults to support the number of retired adults that exist. And then what do you do? Historically, in rich societies, the answer has always been, or it's going to have to be, some form of immigration. But again, that doesn't scale. Like once we reach that point in China, which we're going to reach very quickly, if we're not already there, China, there's not enough countries on the planet for China to import all of the people it needs to look after its, elderly population boom.
And does the idea of working age adults being an important economic indicator, economic predictor, that presumes that those working age adults have the opportunity to have a wage earning job?
Right. I mean, like, yeah, technically speaking, the important thing is like working adults rather than working age adults. But you kind of assume that to a first approximation, those two numbers are pretty highly correlated.
And do you think I should continue to assume that in an AI future?
Now you're asking me to like predict the AI future. That has always been the case for, the past 1,000 years. And so my general heuristic, being a good Bayesian, is that if it's been true for the past 1,000 years, it's probably going to be true for the next 70 years. But it is possible that some singularity will happen and then we'll all just wind up being eaten by Skynet.
Can I ask you, when you think about what you're making money for beyond pleasure, like things to do, hobbies and things,
Is there anything beyond pleasure?
I guess I think, like, as we look at like 70 years from now or 1,000 years from now, do you think not having kids, like, do you think of a sort of like inheritance of what comes after you, of that of what you want your money to do?
So yeah, I think there's an interesting subtext there, which is like, do I consider myself to be the legacy of my grandparents and my great grandparents and my great great grandparents all doing this very selfless thing, which is like having kids, and then at the end of that long line of people having kids for the sake of future generations, I am now that future generation. And what am I doing? I'm, spending it on foie gras at a Manhattan restaurant. And what the hell is the point? It's like, I'm just frittering it all away.
That's not very self-compassionate.
I do think there are ways in which I am trying to make the world a better place. And I certainly give away a bunch of money and try to be mindful of how I'm spending money. But at the same time, I'm not going to pretend that there isn't a bunch of stuff that is just purely selfish. I'm enjoying going to this opera, so I'm going to spend hundreds of dollars on opera tickets.
Well, no, but then you're creating, you're supporting a arts community that otherwise
It is true. I do.
That's
I mean, I live in an art-filled apartment, and all of the art that I have bought has been bought from the artist, and I am supporting those artists by buying that art. I'm not, going out to like auction houses and buying it from rich people who are selling art. I'm buying it from people who make money by selling art, and I think that is an important part of like supporting that community for sure. And that is something, on some level, it is a zero-sum game, right? I get to go out and buy paintings because I don't have to buy diapers.
It's true. I would love to figure out what kind of art I might buy if I had more of an art budget. And that's just something that is either I have to wait for or is just not going to be in the cards for me. Yeah. So I hope
Yeah,
I hope you invite
it's
people
a,
to your place to show off your beautiful art.
we do, and I'll tell you one thing, which is totally off topic, but I will mention it just because I think it's one of the things which people don't do enough, which is that every time we buy an art, we have a dinner party for the artist. And so
Oh,
we
that's
invite them
cool.
over, and we ask them we ask them who they would like to invite, and they get to invite a few other people, and we all have a dinner, and it's all in honor of the artist, and we have the artist we have the art above the dinner table, and yeah, and it feels love. It's a great way of just saying, thank you.
I would argue that that's part of like a kind of this is going to sound lofty, but like an inheritance of what you're doing because you spent that money on that art. You're inviting that artist into your home. You're connecting who they know with people you know, and it's creating a network that just is bigger than if you hadn't done anything to begin with. That's going to perhaps change that artist's work or career in some way. That's good. Like I don't know. I think that's a
And it
when
builds,
I
yeah,
think of
it's
like what we're all
building
doing this for,
communities.
it's like
Yeah.
relational care.
Yeah, and so I have a bunch of relationships. I have a bunch of friends. I'm not friends with my kids' friends' parents because I don't have any kids that have friends who have parents. But that doesn't mean it's amazing how the degree to which people with kids wind up hanging out with their kids' friends' parents. It is quite
Yes.
astonishing.
Yes. I know. We sort of disappear from our friendships with people without kids to our detriment. And also we disappear from our friendships with people who do have kids because there's just less
I do
capacity
think
and
also,
loss.
weirdly, this is part of why, up until very recently, queer Americans have kind of been invisible because they tended not to have kids, and so the straight breeder majority would just not see them because they weren't their kids' friends' parents. But now that your kids' friends' parents are much more likely to be gay, suddenly that is a way for the whole gay, universe to start becoming much more incorporated into quotidian family life. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's wonderful.
Well, and maybe when they were invisible to the breeders, as you call us, they were busy making culture because they had time. Like they were the
Yeah.
vanguard of making culture for us
Yeah,
to
what's
enjoy.
gonna happen to Broadway when all of the gays have kids, man? It's just
That's the root of the crisis, the economic crisis on
that
Broadway.
is the
Too
root of the
many gay
crisis.
families.
Yeah. Come on, gays, stop having kids. We need you to support the culture instead. And
I think I don't know where else we could go from there.
I think we're just going to leave it there. We are going to have 2 more episodes of this little mini series, and I am very hopeful that we're going to be able to rope in my financial advisor to talk a little bit about how she just deals emotionally with people with money, because this is just a deep well of potential conversation. But for the time being, congratulations to everyone who doesn't have kids. Even more congratulations to everyone who does have kids. You're amazing. And we will be back with even more Slate Money and Death, Sex, and Money.
Thank you, Felix. It was a pleasure to be with you.
And yeah, and thank you also. I should thank also Cheyna Roth and Jasmine Marley and the whole Slate team, because we are on YouTube, people. This is we have made the leap.
And you can see my beautiful costume jewelry.
Just take it off once we finish recording, because otherwise you're going to have green skin.